In question number 11, it says the area ratio of two figures is 9 to 49. Find the scale factor. And again, for question 11, 12, 13, 14, all of these I am going to write all four ratios. So I have S for side ratio or regular linear ratio, P for perimeter, A, and V for volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in what they gave me and then find what they're asking for. They said the area ratio is 9 to 49, which I'll write as a fraction. What they want us to find is the actual linear, or I'm sorry, yeah, the linear scale factor, which is the side ratio. So we have to go backwards. So we have to think what times what is 9, and that would be 3, and what times what is 49, that would be 7. So the answer to this question is 3 to 7. I'm going to do the same thing for number 12. So first I write S for side, P for perimeter, A, and volume. They tell us the scale factor is 5 to 2. That's just the regular S side ratio. And I'm going to fill out all four again for you real quickly. The perimeter is the same. The area, remember your teachers do r squared, and volume r cubed. So area would be 25 to 4, because you square both the numbers. And then volume would be 125 to 8. So now I can look at the question they wanted. The question they asked for is to find the ratio of the volumes. Well, then it must be 125 to 8. And you can write it like this, or you can use fractions. So again, in this question, they give us the scale factor is 5 to 11. So that would mean that the perimeter ratio, which is the same, is also 5 to 11, and that's because the perimeter is the length, just like the side length. Area would be 25 to 121, because you have to square those. That's the r squared your teachers are talking about. And the volume would be 125, because that's 5 to the third, and 11 to the third is 1331. What they're asking us for is the ratio of the areas. So the answer to that would just be 25 to 121. In question number 14, we're going to use the ratios again. It says two similar shapes have a scale factor of 1 to 5. So every time I see this, I write these four letters to help me remember what to do. So I have a 1 to 5 ratio for the side, a 1 to 5 for perimeter. The area is r squared, or the ratio squared, so I get 1 to 25. And the volume is 1 times 1 times 1, and 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. What they say is the smaller shape has an area of 10. Find the area of the larger. Well, that means we can't use 1 to 5. We have to use the area ratio. So I'm going to set up 1 to 25. They told us that the small has an area of 10. Well, 1 is smaller than 25, so the 10 goes on top, x is on the bottom, and when you cross multiply, you get a final answer of 250 for the area of the larger shape. For those teachers who are doing what's called the triangle inequality, the way that I do it is I take all three numbers that they're giving, because it says which teacher's set of numbers will form a triangle. Well, just so that you have a quick theory real quickly, if the bottom of this shape was 100, let's say, and one side was 1 and the other side was 1, hopefully you could see that's impossible and you couldn't get a triangle. So what I like to do is I like to imagine that I have the largest side on the bottom. So in Miss Prutzman's case, the largest would be 19. Then one side has 6 coming up and the other has 13 coming up. And hopefully you can see that if one side is 6 and the other's 13, when you add those numbers together, you actually get 19. So they would collapse, they would fall down, and you wouldn't get a triangle. So Mrs. Prutzman's will not form a triangle. I do the same thing for Mr. Cam's. I put the largest number on the bottom, which is a 9. Then I have one side's coming up that's a 3. The other side coming up is a 7. And since when I add the 3 and the 7, that's more than 9, you can get a triangle with it. So Mr. Cam's will form a triangle. For Mrs. Glass, that's me, I would put the 18 on the bottom, because that's the largest. One side coming up is 13. The other side is 9. And if you add 9 and 13, you get more than 18, so it will also form a triangle. Basically, the two smallest sides have to be more than the third side when you add them together. So if I wanted to do a shortcut to do Mr. Atkins, I look at the two smallest numbers. When you add them, they need to be more than the largest side. And 5 plus 8 is 13. That is not more than 18, so that one's out. For Miss McGregor, the two smallest, you have to be careful, not the first two you see, the two smallest are 6 and 10. And if you add 6 plus 10, you get a picture that's similar to this. They will collapse because it won't be more than 16. So Miss McGregor's doesn't work. And for Miss Abel, again, you take the two smallest and you add them together. And if I add 7 and 1, it will not be more than 13. Visually, what that means is if there's a 13 here, a 7 on one side, and a 1 on the other, it's too short and you won't get a triangle. So the only two that work is Mr. Cam and Mrs. Glass. In number 16, they say what are the possible side lengths for the third side of a triangle if they're given 16 and 3. The best thing to do is to find out what the maximum is. And the maximum when you add those two numbers together is 19. The minimum when you subtract those two is 13. And that means any number between 19 and 13 will work, but 19 won't and 13 won't. So the way that we write that with an inequality, that's why it's called triangle inequality, is like this, where it has to be a little more than 13, but a little less than 19 to work. Number 7 is review. I think this is to get you ready for your final. It says the length of the hypotenuse of a right triangle is 7. The length of one leg is 2. Find the length of the other leg. So hopefully at this point in the year you're really good at the Pythagorean theorem, so I'm going to solve that for you. So I solved it on the right using the Pythagorean theorem. Make sure that the 7 is your C value. In the end I got the square root of 45. And some of you know that breaks down into 9 times 5, and the square root of 9 is 3. So another way to write it is 3 square root of 5. And if you punch it into the calculator, you get approximately 6.7. In question number 18, it says if the point -54, -95 is rotated 90 degrees clockwise. Remember, clockwise is to the right, the way the clock goes. And 90 would be one turn. What are the coordinates of the new point? So first I graphed it over here so we could find the point, and I'm actually going to take my iPad and turn it once to the right. When you do, you look for the coordinates of the new point as if it's brand new. So to get here, I would have to go to the left 95, which is negative, but up 54. So the final answer would be 95 negative, comma 54 positive. In number 19, they want us to solve for x, and hopefully you know SOHCAHTOA really well at this point in the year too. SOHCAHTOA. And I look at angle 28. The 14 is actually opposite. The x is adjacent, so we have to use tangent. I will set that up for you. So excuse my handwriting, but in the end I got 14 divided by tangent 28, which you could plug into your calculator, or sometimes that's an exact answer, so you can leave it like that, especially if it's multiple choice. So 14 divided by the tangent of 28. If you do use your calculator, make sure you're in the correct mode, which is degree mode. In question 20, it says if the area of a rectangle is 221 square meters and its length is 17, find the width. Hopefully you know the area of a rectangle is length times width, or base times height. If the area is 221 and its length is 17, find the width. All you have to do is divide by 17. and you get that the width is 13. At this point, if you wanted to, they could ask you to find the total perimeter. So if you know the length is 17 and you know the height is 13, you could find the perimeter all the way around. In question number 21, it says find all the missing angle measures. So what we need to do is we need to find out what all of these angles add up to, which is 180, so I'm going to solve for x first. So when I solve for x, I got 17. You should be pretty good at that by now. I replace them to find each angle. So one angle is 51, one is 31, and the other is 98. And if they asked what kind of triangle this would be, I would hope that you would say that it is obtuse and scalene. The reason why it's scalene is because, I didn't spell that right, scalene. The reason why is because all the angles are different, and the reason why it's obtuse is because at least one angle is more than 90.